Tipton Community School Board work session to order. And we're kind of looking for Mr. Dworsky to arrive.
Well, I'll go ahead and just kind of go through the website, the new website for everybody to take a look. And let me go back here and we have a new Apple TV. So excited. You might need to turn everything off and then log back in and see if it'll connect.
Oh, great. Sorry if the light.
Well, I think it's something. That's on. I know. Hey, Stevens. There we go. Maybe that'll do it. I can't mirror again. I don't know what's going on. Promise I did nothing. I didn't even turn it off.
Construction is happening.
So let me, I'll just go on this one. This is going to be the sound of school next year.
Yeah.
It just popped up.
Yeah, that'd be great. With okay. I did want to take the opportunity, since we're live streaming our work session, to go through our new website and really talk about some of the information that's important to our new policy regarding, speaking at meetings and public participation in meetings. So, so if you are interested, there's a couple of places where you can go to sign up for to speak at the meetings. You can go here at our district. You can click board, and then meeting and public comments. And this is where you would register to speak at the meeting. Now, obviously, it's closed right now, but it will reopen roughly. We're setting that up probably about 2 days, or probably the same day that we're doing the agenda coming out. So probably when we will do a preliminary agenda on a Thursday before a meeting on Tuesday, so it'll be up and ready to go, and they'll be able to have access to that until 24 hours before the meeting starts. So this is just so you have the public comment policy, and then if you want to go specifically again to register for public comment, you could click here. So lots of different places. There's also a place here on the home page under board meetings. You can go and you can get the same place. Okay, so we've tried to put it in a couple of places to help people to navigate that. So thank you, Bianca. She's our webpage rock star. She just does great work. The other thing I wanted to take the opportunity to show you was the curriculum. You're going to have several people talking to you about, and it's already starting a little bit with some of the organizations, what's being taught, what materials are being used, all of this information. So our teachers spent a lot of time last year designing scope and sequence, and all of those scope and sequences, I'm not sure whether that's right or not, are located on our webpage. So if you have a kindergartner and you want to know what they're doing in math, you can click here and you will know what's going to happen in August, September, October, so forth and so on. Okay? And say you have a high school kid and they are in an English class and they're doing ACP composition. Okay, so the first 2 weeks of the course, the students will learn and apply analytical techniques. So they're just getting started. And then the next part of the unit for the next 2 weeks is summary under happiness. We'll continue to learn and apply analytical techniques, write summaries, so forth and so on. So really projecting all of that out for a period of time. So again, this is a semester course. So again, it's trying to outline exactly what's happening in classes so that we have our, so parents are aware of what's happening. Same thing would happen in middle school. So if you're looking, you have a child that's a 7th grader and you want to look at 7th grade English, you have all of that there too. So in this situation, it's they have the book or story they may be reading, which is The Red Scarf Girl, and that's on Amplify. The vocabulary app is on Amplify, so parents will know that that's on digital curriculum. That's on their iPad. And then these are the standards that will be addressed during that time period. So, I mean, again, it's, you know, I hope that it is beneficial to our community, and it also allows us to answer the question, you know, what is the school teaching? Okay, and it's another leap forward in our opportunity to be as transparent as possible. And so a lot of credit goes to our teachers and to Mr. Jaworski for leading this last year. And this next year, we'll be working on assessments that will help to show that our students are learning once this information has been taught. Are they learning? Are they able to master that content and then able to move on to the next? So again, it's a process. It's going to take a bit of time. I think the assessments are in some ways a little bit harder than the scope and sequence. You'll also see some changes in the scope and sequence, I'm sure, this time next year as teachers have gone through and taught and go, well, I think this might work more effectively in this sequence, so forth and so on. But anyway, that's all located here on this website. We are also, you know, again, we have our calendar, which has kind of, you know, we have the district calendar, which, look, it's where we're here at our board meeting. So anyway, so school offices open, you know, all this information will be on the district calendar. There will be, we do have some athletics on there as well. Is that right, Bianca? That's what I thought. I want to make sure I said that right. So there will be some athletics. Yeah, there it is. On the calendar as well. So again, trying to create again that one-stop shop. And then I know that one of the things we're working on is actually putting athletics on this website versus the current site that they're using. So that may take a little bit of time. I'll be us because there's a lot of entanglements with that current web page and how it works with their social media and different things like that. So that may not be something we can do like that, but definitely trying to work to make that a better experience. Any other questions about the website?
Ryan, go ahead, Jen.
Okay, I just had a question back on the scope and sequence, and part of it you've answered. First of all, I want to say that is an incredible amount of work, and I'm so thankful for it. And I can't imagine the amount of time, not only to have all that, but also have it available on our website. You mentioned that maybe next year at this time we might see some updates. Is there kind of a system in place at how often we will, be reviewing that to make sure this doesn't become an outdated,
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that's something that I think our staff may sort of already have experienced to this point. So this is not the first time that our staff have worked through some scope and sequence. Maybe this is the first time it's been formalized to this level. But a scope and sequence, your curriculum maps that teachers kind of work out, that's something that it's a living, breathing document, right? I mean, this is not something that I want to handcuff teachers to say, oh, you said 3 weeks back last year and you spent 3.5, like what's going on? This is something that is definitely gets reviewed each year. Like Dr. Lays was saying, the idea is that, you go through, you teach it. Every group of students is different. Maybe some students need longer or shorter, or maybe the way that you taught it this year maybe makes sense in a different order. Again, that's something that, because the way that Bianca linked this is any changes that get made on the Google Docs that the teachers make, automatically it's updated here. So if there is a change that happens, it's live. Like teachers will, as long as teachers are updating these documents, the community will be updated on exactly what changes with this. Again, just to kind of piggyback off what Dr. Glaze was saying, one, obviously, it's just good instructional practice to have a guide, a map of where you're going and where you want your students to be by the end of the year. It really serves our teachers, and I've already had a handful of staff talk to me about this, the idea of cross-curricular activities, being able to identify this is a project we're working on, or this is a unit we're working on in my class. There's a similar unit going on in the science class. Let me see if I can't find a way to work with that teacher to create some kind of collaborative work for our students to see the connection between our two classes. Obviously, it's a huge, from a branding perspective, advertisement tool for our students, not just for new families coming in and see like what is it that Tipton can offer, but also for our current families. Like if I'm a student, I'm trying to decide what class I want to take, I can see exactly what I'm going to learn in whatever class I want to take for next semester. So that might help me drive a decision as far as, I think I'm going to take this class versus that class. Or again, a lot of times in my experience, math classes tend to be, do I take this calculus class? Do I take a stats class? Do I take a discrete math class? Again, this is just another way for us to kind of work with that. And then again, to Dr. Glaze's point, the next step in this process is assessment. Now that we've established what it is we want our students to learn, the next question is, how do we know that they've learned it? And so with that, we are going to be using these curriculum maps, these scope and sequences, to really identify what is the success criteria for our students. What is it that we're going to measure to make sure that our students actually know the standards that we taught them? That's a huge process. Like I said, currently from a professional development standpoint, I'm budgeting about 2 full years to really get this to be really tightly under our belts, make sure that our staff have a firm understanding of exactly not only what does good instruction look like, but then what does good assessment look like. And that's not something that's easy. There's a lot of things that go into it, and it really starts with having a firm foundation of what it is you want your kids to learn. So like I said, some of the scope and sequences, some are stronger than others. I think over the course of the next year or two, again, they're only going to get stronger, especially as we start building these assessments. So.
And the other thing, and I wanted to mention this too, is there's been a request to have more of a prominent place as far as our course catalog, and Bianca has already taken care of that and put that here on the web page. So when it comes to that time when you're shopping for a class, you can take a look at what all we are offering, and give the description. Anything and everything you would want to know about that specific area. So anyway, I just feel like, once again, we are developing this as something that we want people to use and we are hoping to see a lot more traffic on our web page for this reason. And again, I would just, if you, as a board, if you have questions and patrons are asking questions, and hopefully this information's on the website, I would just encourage them to take a look. And then one other thing really quick, and then I'll turn it over to Scott for the data, is just our current pathways, which will expand with the 3E grant that we just received. So again, for a small school, we are offering a lot of stuff. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll log off so you can.
I was gonna say we're gonna try this out. I have not.
Yeah, I know.
Stopped in
We're
here.
all playing with the new technology. There it is. Bum 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 bum. It is.
It's just going to give me just a moment.
Whatever.
Exactly. I'm not tricky.
That's what All right.
It's the Jaworski family.
Very, very popular among the admin team as they get to see that every time we have a meeting. All right, let me see if I do this right. Here you are. Where'd you go, mouse? There you are. Yeah. Alrighty. Try to keep myself at a relatively good pace. All right. So again, this is for data for the 2021-2022 school year. Just kind of jumping into it. In my director's notes this month, I outlined the assessments we administer to all students for each grade, K through 12. Today, we're going to take a look at the data from our end of the year assessments, that being iRead, NWA, iLearn, and SAT. Before we begin, just a few pieces of information for everybody to keep in mind as we go over this. First of all, data is just data. All right, there's neither good nor bad data. It's simply a mirror that we hold up to ourselves to kind of evaluate where we are as a school, as a teacher, as a district. So again, that's what gives it value is what we do with that data, not necessarily the fact that, oh, it's X percentage or whatever. It's, yeah, that's what we are. Now, what are we going to do with that? It'd be easy for me to kind of make some sweeping generalizations from this information, but please bear in mind that these are just individual data points given on individual days, snapshots on our students' path of learning. Again, how we use this information, again, is much more valuable than just the raw data itself. And then finally, this is just what I'm going to give you today, a 10,000-foot view of our district data. I spent a lot of days, weeks kind of poring over some of the breakdowns by subgroups and specific content. There's a lot of information that to take in that can be presented here today, and our staff are going to get the opportunity both in the Summer Academy and during PLCs over the next month or so to really dive in and actually use this data to inform instruction going forward. So with that, let me kind of jump in to say how we're going to read this data today together. So there's 4 big things that I'm going to hit on for each of our assessments. One is just what's our overall performance, right? How do we do compared to the state? How do we do compared to our past, regionally? What does that look like? Again, doing a little bit of comparisons there, some comparisons with our subgroups. I'm going to talk about some big takeaways with each data set that I give you. And then following that particular assessment, I'm going to talk about how we as a school or as a district are going to address some of the issues we've identified from that data. Again, data is only as good as what you do with it. So with that said, we're going to start with iRead. And they have not, the state has not released the state averages, state report on iRead as of yet. I think that's coming out either later this month or early next. So I don't have anything to compare statewide yet. But if we look at our historical achievement on iRead, back in 2019, again, that was pre-pandemic, we were at 95% passing rate. And then last year and this year, we're both sitting at 91. So again, still above that 90% threshold. but it's something to note that our incoming third graders were probably the ones most dramatically impacted by the learning disruptions due to the pandemic. There were kindergartners back in 1920, first graders in 2021, and last year, obviously, second graders. They haven't had a single year without significant learning disruption. So we're going to be closely monitoring their performance, their success on this upcoming assessment. And if I were going to pick a group of kids who might be at the low end of our achievement, it would probably be this incoming third grade class. Now, with that said, I like to believe that we are putting in a lot of work to make sure that we're supporting those students. And that's why we're keeping a really close eye on their data as they come in. Because again, they're going to have iLearn for the first time. They're going to have iRead for the first time. So we're going to get a really good idea of how deep this pandemic has really cut into our teaching and learning. If you break down by subgroups, it might be a little bit hard to see. Again, you should have the data. I think I sent you the links for this, and if not, I'll make sure I get those to you. But some big takeaways from our breakdown on it by subgroup. There's a noticeable difference between boys and girls, and historically, this is a lot closer. It's usually not as wide. I think right now it's about 8% difference. Normally, it's significantly closer. Something that we're going to continue to monitor. It's nothing to get too upset about at this point, I don't believe. But it's something I thought was worth noting is that in this particular cohort, the boys outnumber the girls by 20. So I don't know if that has some type of impact on that or not. But again, previous two cohorts, they were within like 5 count of each other. Our socioeconomic status subgroup is something that we're definitely keeping a close eye on. Again, we're seeing a decrease in performance from our economically disadvantaged population on iRead 3. In 2019, we had 6% of our low SES students were below what their counterparts were at. In 2021, that rose to 9% difference, and this past year it's 14%. They're 14% behind their counterparts. So again, that gap is starting to widen, and that's something that's really caught our attention, something we're going to keep a close eye on and see what type of supports we can provide some of those students in that population. And then our special ed subgroup, again, in 2019 actually performed at the same level as our general education population. Again, they both passed at a rate of 95% that year. In this particular year and last year, actually, coincidentally, our special ed cohort passed at a 78% compared to our gen ed population at a 94%. Again, it's not abnormal. You typically see special ed populations perform below gen ed populations, but it's not something that we're particularly happy about, not something that we're going to accept, something we're going to continue working on, and we have a few irons in the fire regarding that. Speaking of which, how do we respond to that data? So looking at that iRead data, what else does it mean? What are we going to do about that? So our new TES administration and building leadership team are going to be reviewing the student assessment data and the state of the elementary in general, and conduct a root cause analysis of areas of need and setting a new school improvement plan for this 3-year cycle. Again, we're going to have a new school improvement plan. This data is going to play a big factor in on that. Last winter, our special education department began reallocating resources to both meet the needs of our students and make more efficient use of their work. Those adjustments are going to be in effect at the start of the school year. So again, the changes we made at the end of last year, we're going to start them with the start of the year this year and see what that does. Again, we're going to keep a close eye on that data and see how that has affected our students' results, particularly on iRead. And then finally, we'll have a new Title I team this school year. They'll be implementing a new reading intervention program that's going to target specific student needs. And again, probably one area that I really want to make sure we focus on is our low SES students and making sure that they're getting the support they need so that gap doesn't continue to widen, and set goals that monitor student progress and program effectiveness. So again, a lot of data is going to be collected this year. We're going to be keeping a close eye on that and seeing what changes that we're doing, if they're making the significant impact that we're hoping they will. Looking at NWEA, this is our formative assessment. Again, I gave a little description in my notes about what we use this for. Again, it's just kind of give us an idea, temperature check throughout the year where our students are at and kind of adjust instruction accordingly. Big takeaways from this data, again, to read it, you want to expect within each grade level, you see the red, blue, and green bands for each grade level. You want to see that growth. Now, in your younger grades, you're going to see a lot more growth than you will in the older grades. That is expected. That is typical. So don't be alarmed that 8th grade has less growth than kindergarten. Again, K through 5, they have a pretty typical growth compared to norms, national norms. That's about what we would expect. We're really not too far off on our kindergarten through 5th grade. 6th grade actually saw some dramatic increase. Some great work in our 6th grade math program, especially from winter to spring, compared again to what is typically seen in those grade levels. Again, both 7th and 8th grade math did show growth, but not nearly as much as what was expected. And in fact, our 6th grade students on average finish higher than our 7th grade students, and pretty similar to where our 8th grade students are. So again, I think that speaks one to the work done in our 6th grade, but also to the work we still have to do in our 7th and 8th grade. When we look at growth, again, just a quick look at that, comparing norm growth, what we expect. Red is what we expect to see. Blue is what we actually saw. So we want to see that blue above the red in each of those grade levels. Again, when we look at the observed growth compared to the national average, all our grade levels were above national norms in math except for that 7th and 8th grade. And again, like I said, we expect growth to decrease as the grade level increases. So the fact that the graph kind of slants negative there isn't a problem. What we're really concerned about is that blue column being greater than that red column. Again, similar to last year, we had impressive growth in our 3rd grade cohort. We also had excellent growth and achievement from both our kindergarten, 2nd, and 4th grade cohorts on that. Again, historically, that's just kind of looking at a little rebound for the majority of our grade levels from one year to the next. We did see, again, a drop in our 5th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And again, this is why we compare both to our national norms and to ourselves year over year to kind of see, yeah, we have high expectations here at Tipton, so we expect to be above national norms. So that's why I also really like to take a close look at how we've done previously, compare ourselves to ourselves to make sure that we're continuing to see growth year over year. With reading, again, really typical growth here. Again, grades K through 4 and 7th grade as well. Grades 5 and 6 could certainly be better, but again, did not decrease. 8th grade actually saw a decrease in scores from their fall to their spring. Again, I know that data is a little bit hard to read, but again, not typically what we're looking for, obviously, from our 8th grade team. Some big takeaways from just reading that growth. Again, the one that really jumps out the most to me is the fact that our 8th grade actually had negative growth. Not something that we're looking for. And again, this is one assessment, this is one measure, but it's something that we give over the course of the year, beginning, middle, and end of the year, something that we want to be really mindful of, that we're keeping those not just positive, but also above that national growth norms. I will note that scores in both kindergarten and 3rd grade were both nearly 5 points above national average. That is quite impressive. Again, those two definitely standing out as significant jumps in our growth for reading. And again, comparing historically to our own scores, we saw a noticeable dip in performance in grades 2, 7, and 8, but we also saw some increase in our scores in 1st, 4th, and 6th grade. So again, it's really easy to make a wide generalization like, oh, like our scores are doing poorly, or hey, our scores are doing great. We have to take this information and figure out what is it that we're going to do with it. So what does all this NWA data mean? How are we responding to it? So from a math perspective, we are providing additional support in the middle school. We have additional time this summer to review the data and align curriculum and instructional practices. We have 40 minutes of daily collaboration time to reflect upon and respond to student learning, develop cross-curricular work, offer weekly targeted professional development for instructional practices. Our middle school has a schedule structured in a way that there is going to be an excess amount of support. There is an incredible amount of support that we're going to be providing our staff, and it's because of this data that we recognize that our staff need extra support. They need that help. They need in order to jump from where we're at to where we want to be. There's a big gap. And so we need to make sure we're providing the time for our staff to actually receive some of that professional learning. Restructuring the middle school ELA classes, we're going to put one qualified ELA teacher responsible for teaching the ELA content for each grade level. My hope is that this is going to help us avoid some gaps in the content, both within the grade levels, and provide some increased collaboration time to reduce that curricular gap between grade levels as well. So again, a little bit more cohesion, a little more consistency between those grade levels. And then we're also moving to a new formative assessment. So it's not that we didn't like the data and we wanted to move away from NWA because it wasn't telling us the data that we liked. The idea behind, again, like I said several times now, it's about how we respond to this data. And in my experience, not just here at Tipton, but in other schools, is that NWA tends to be a little bit more cumbersome to read. Again, looking at those graphs is probably the nicest data that I can pull from it for everybody, and it's still not even that that pleasant to look at, not that pleasant to really pull meaningful, impactful day-to-day instructional support for our students. So what we're looking at is we're looking into moving into a new formative assessment, iReady. It's an adaptive diagnostic tool. So similar to NWA in that respect, where it adapts to where the students are at based off of whether they're getting correct or incorrect answers. But not only does it do that, the data itself is a lot more user-friendly. Families be able to read it and understand exactly where their students are at. So it's not some random number that's thrown out and said, hey, your kid's a 238. Well, I don't know if that's good or that's bad. This will actually tell you specifically your child is about middle of the year for their grade level, or they're a 1 year grade level behind, or they're end of the year for the next year, right? They're an advanced student. That's where they should be. Again, this is really valuable data that we can use both as a school district and as a community and our families about understanding where their students are at. The other thing that's really nice about iReady is that creates these personalized learning pathways for students. So it not only gives them specifically where they're at, but then within that program, it will give them some targeted learning activities that focus specifically on where they're at. So if you have a student who's below grade level, it gives you activities that are at their level so that they can accelerate up to where they need to be in class. And if you have a child who is above and beyond the grade level, then it gives them challenging questions at that level. So this works at the full spectrum of students, not just a focus on remediation, but also a focus on enrichment as well. So again, it's a supplement to our curriculum. It's not a replacement of that curriculum. But like I said, the idea is that it's going to help our students on both ends of the spectrum. Now the fun part, iLearn. This is the one that tends to get most of the headlines. A lot of this data was kind of released as far as statewide just recently. So similar to what we're seeing around the state, grades 3 and 4 have shown a strong bounce back in achievement, while grades 5 through 8 continue to have some struggles in our reading and writing. While grades 5 to 7 are well below that state average, 8th grade has really fallen off pace from the state average by almost 10%. And when we look at our historical comparisons to what we saw from the previous cohort, again, looking at that 8th grade, they were at 50% passing rate, and we moved away from that to our new 2 teachers there in the 8th grade. We saw a drop back down to what's that, 30? I should have had better numbers on that. About 32%, 38%, something like that. But anyways, what we're looking at here is typical growth across the state. Again, for all levels is about 1 to 4%. Again, we saw a drop off in grade 5 and significant drop off again in grade 8. 4th grade scores jumped from the year before. Student cohorts also saw some signs of improvement. Again, that 4th grade and 7th grade saw improvements from the previous year. And again, our 5th and 6th grade saw some of the biggest drops. Despite losing that high achieving group from last year's 8th grade, the overall performance in 3 through 8 still largely stay the same. We're just down 1% overall as a district on that. If you wanted to compare us regionally, we fall kind of a little bit in the middle, just above the halfway point there, somewhere between Tri-Central and Clinton. Again, just something for us to look at. There's one thing to compare to state averages. There's another thing to compare to the people around us. And again, I understand that a lot of these schools have different populations, but it's something worth noting and something that we want to keep an eye on, something we obviously want to move towards the top as a way to kind of show off what we can do here at Tipton. Again, not satisfied with where we're at, but again, not far off of the pace either. So what are we doing about it? How are we responding to this iLearn data? So across grades 3 through 8, writing was consistently that weakest reporting category for ELA. So in the elementary, we are dedicating a 30-minute writing block daily in grades K through 5. Within that writing block, there's also going to be some Tier 3 intervention provided by our Title I program to make sure we are targeting specific students who are starting to fall through the cracks and make sure they don't fall through the cracks, that we keep them up to pace with where they need to be. Our middle school will have multiple dedicated content and grade level meetings weekly, along with the professional development weekly to support staff and improve instruction and build more of those cross-curricular projects. I know in the past, the middle schools had some type of writing tool that had success in the past, and we've kind of gone away from it the last couple of years when COVID started. I know that's something that I've had conversations with the instructional coach and administration about potentially reinstituting that and trying to get more consistency of writing across the grade level, not just within your ELA class. Again, both TES and TMS will use this data to develop their school improvement plans and address these specific issues to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and of our teachers.
The writing block,
Yeah.
in elementary, do you think that's going to be more iPads, computers, or physically writing?
That is a great question. I know personally, I would like to see more of that actual hands-on writing. However, with that in mind, we can't neglect writing on the iPads as well. That is how they're going to be measured. It's how they're going to be assessed. So I think there's a balance, and I would definitely trust our teachers to make that kind of professional judgment of exactly where that balance falls, particularly depending on the grade level and where those kids are in their typing skills. Obviously, with our K1, 2, there's going to be a lot more emphasis on writing compared to typing. But by the time they start getting in that 3rd, 4th, 5th grade range, we should start seeing a little bit more of that actually writing on an iPad or on a computer. So, but yeah, as far as the method of writing goes, that's a great question. That's something that I think our elementary leadership team will take a close look at. With math, I would actually say that we had fairly strong math scores, particularly in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. All of them were 5% or more above the state average. So that is something to be quite proud of. And again, most notably, the 5% above state average for 6th grade. Terry Schmidt, who was moving from 7th grade, teaching her first year as 6th grade math teacher, did wonders with that. Did a fantastic job in that position. Something we're really, really excited about. Again, kind of the elephant in the room here is our grades 7 and 8 were significantly below state average by 15 and 16 percentage points respectively. Not something that we're looking for at all. Something that we're currently addressing. Something that was worth mentioning that I was actually watching before I came down here. When comparing the state average, we're typically seeing a 1 to 3% drop in scores for cohorts. So for example, and yeah, see if we can get a good look at this. So you see here we had about 52% with that 3rd grade here back last year. That cohort bumped up to 55% in 4th grade. So where we typically across the state see a drop year over year for students from 3rd grade moving to 4th grade, 4th grade to 5th grade, we saw growth with our last year's 4th grade students compared to what they were in 3rd grade. 3rd grade, they were pretty high achieving as well. So that's something worth noting. Again, the rest of these, you'll see a drop. I think this dropped from 47% to 46%. That's about in the range that we'd expect. 41%, 41%. There actually wasn't really a drop there for our current 6th grade or our previous 6th grade students. And then obviously what we had in 7th and 8th grade, we can't have that going forward. Those drops are pretty significant. Historically, again, comparing to how we've been in the past, similar ELA, overall performance in grades 3 through 8 really only dropped 1% overall. But student cohorts across the board went down, except for, as far as grade level to grade level. So for example here, we went from 66% to 55% for the 2030 cohort, 29 to 26, 49 to 41. So we're seeing some drops, but again, what we're looking for is to make sure we're not getting those double-digit drops. State average wise, we will typically see that 1 to 3%. But what we see there in 7th and 8th grade was not what we're looking for. As far as where we fall in our region, again, similar to ELA, about middle of the pack, something that we are setting goals to get ourselves up that chain, move ourselves up that ladder. Again, that was for math. How we're responding to it. And this is one that's pretty close to me. We did experience a little bit of turnover with our middle school math team. Our new 7th and 8th grade math teachers have already come in this summer. They've been hard at work defining student learning outcomes, aligning content both across grade levels and for our middle school honors math program, creating lesson plans using our new math resource. They've already started putting in the time and the hours working on that to kind of turn us around there. As a corporation, we're going to be providing some math support for our tier 3, our lowest achieving students. That support is going to target students who are below grade level and accelerate them up to grade level by looking at their current content and identifying what skills they need to be successful on grade level material. It's not going to help them on iLearn if they're at a 5th grade level and we only teach them 5th grade math when they're 8th grade students. We need to find those connections that's going to get them onto grade level where they're at. So whether that's targeting specific things or working with those kids after school, that's kind of the name of the game here. Again, that support is going to be focused on both 8th grade students and our incoming freshman class. That's where we saw the biggest drop in scores. That's where the most of our support is going to go. Again, that's the data driving some of our decision making here. And then finally, as a math department as a whole, we just underwent a resource adoption that's aligned to Indiana academic standards and provide the type of instructional support necessary to bring students back together. When we were looking at those resources, we were looking specifically at how is this aligned to Indiana standards and how is this going to kind of bridge that learning gap that we've experienced over the last few years. And we feel like we have the resources in place currently to make that happen. I learned biology. Again, some more bad news here. Similar to 7th and 8th grade math, we saw some significant drops below state average here. Compared to schools in the region, we fall about second lowest in the region as far as biology scores go. Something that we want to keep up. We're keeping a really close eye on. Particularly, we were not exactly stellar last year either, and we saw a slight drop in those biology scores. That's something that we are going to have our eye on. Something that we'll talk about here in just a minute on how we're going to respond to this data. On the flip side of that, while biology in our high school might have been struggling, our elementary and middle school science has been thriving. 4th grade I Learned Science Assessment, both the traditional science academic standards as well as computer science standards. So again, when we talk about science, it's not just what you typically think of life science, physical science, it's also computer science as well. And so our 4th grade score not only dwarfs that state average, but it's also the highest in the region by far. So big shout out to Mrs. Hale and our 4th grade teachers, Sherry Cunningham, Paula Stevens, Sherry Leffler, and Jen Martin for helping our 4th grade students reach that high achievement. That is quite impressive to be 21% above the state average. Again, it's important to note that both 4th and 6th grades saw an increase in scores from that previous year. So this will provide our students with that strong foundation that we hope pays dividends down the road when we get to biology with those kiddos. And again, just for comparison's sake, we see that we're over 3%, about 3% above even Hamilton Heights as far as like science achievement goes. So that is something that is worth celebrating for sure. Social studies, again, another high mark here for our 5th grade. Social studies I Learned is only taken in 5th grade, and they experience, again, more than 10% above the state average there. Even compared to last year, which was, again, pretty well above state average, we saw growth. So our 5th grade team is doing an excellent work with their social studies curriculum. And again, if you want to compare it to our region, social studies, again, just a little bit behind Tri-Central and Sheridan there, being in the top 3 as far as in our region goes. So what are we doing about it? How are we responding to this data? Again, science and social studies, you're going to see continued success in 4th and 6th grade. We look forward to not only maintaining but building on that success. We've seen 2 consecutive years of low biology scores. Again, as a science team, our high school biology teachers are going to have to take a closer look at those learning outcomes and develop some rigorous curriculum. We've talked about the need to focus on vocabulary and how biology is almost its own language, and that we need to make sure we are emphasizing what's going to be measured on that assessment, make sure our students are prepared for that. Also, every 8 years, the Indiana academic standards get reviewed and revised for each subject. Science is no exception. Despite some of those recent successes we've had, our staff are going to have to keep up with the latest on some of the changes with the standards. So that's something that we are making sure we provide them time with. Again, those scope and sequences, they're going to need to be reviewed, they're going to be revised, and going to be updated. Again, with this new curriculum, it's also going to be a new adoption year for science this upcoming year. So similar to math, we're going to be prioritizing alignment to those Indiana standards, supporting some high quality, authentic learning experiences for our students that emphasizes the importance, like I said, of vocabulary. It's going to be a big deal for us. And finally, last assessment is all about SATs. Again, some of our big takeaways, things to keep in mind. ERW there. ERW stands for English Reading and Writing. It's our first year that the SAT has been required for all 11th grade students. Overall, again, Tipton sits right about state average across all categories. We're just below state average in percent of students meeting benchmarks in both ERW and math, but also below average on percent of students not meeting benchmarks. So again, that's a kind of a double negative, kind of a positive there. Hovering around state average on percent of students meeting benchmark in both English reading and writing and math. And then, regardless of the state average, 20% mean benchmark in math is something that we're going to look closer at. I know that's something that our 6 through 12 math department met this summer to have a little bit of conversation about where we're at, where we're trying to get kids going. This is something that we're going to be setting as a goal for our high school math department to try to increase those scores. So again, responding to this data, our high school staff, we're going to spend the next 2 years, again, developing these rigorous and standards-aligned assessments, something that we talked about earlier with the scope and sequence. This is going to help identify if students are meeting the full extent of the academic standards and how we can be a little more responsive to our students' needs as we go along through the school year and not wait until the SAT to realize, oh, they really didn't get all of this stuff. Similar to TMS math support, our incoming freshmen and Algebra 1 students will be provide some targeted math intervention by our staff through some tutoring opportunities. And then with the addition of our reading interventionists in the high school, just as in math, we expect some acceleration to take place, bringing students from below grade level back to grade level. So those are some of the ways that we're going to respond to that. If you have any further explanation about the data right now that you want me to talk about, if you want to save that for later, you want to email me, any way you want to contact me as far as getting more information analyzed. Like I said, I have a lot more, and this was just about a half hour's worth of information dumped on you guys, but I appreciate y'all sticking with me. And any other concerns for me?
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
sir.
you.
Next is to review today's board meeting agenda. If you have any questions or comments on that, anything in your packet.
Just on the financial report, really, I'm curious to know the bond, putting back into paying for expenses that we've had.
We just closed on the bonds last Thursday, so we have that much. So next month.
This is kind of a super specific question, but in the accounts payable report, there was the Edmonton disbursement. I'm curious if that is a payment for the 2022-23 school year, or if that's a back payment for last year.
That's paying for next year.
Or it's still working, okay. And then the same for Project Lead the Way?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what Project Lead the, I know what Project Lead the Way is, but is that for elementary, is that for middle, or?
It's for high school.
High school.
It's for our computer programming and also for our robotics.
Okay.
They both fall under the
Going back to the website, I had one question. I didn't see on there, and you may have mentioned this at some point earlier this month. I didn't see a link to meeting minutes, to past meeting minutes in there. Okay, I just was curious. You're doing a great job building it as it goes. What about this? What about this? But I just was curious about that.
Do I have anything else? We will adjourn the work session and convene our regular session in about 10 minutes. please stand and join.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is comments from the community, and we had went through that process during the work session and at the last meeting, and we didn't have anyone register to speak. So we're going to jump to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda item, or consent agenda items. And the first thing is approval of the agenda. Approval of the minutes from the June 14th regular session meeting, approval of claims for June the 24th, payroll of claims for June the 30th, and payroll claims for July the 8th. The personnel report for July 2022, and I will read that once we're accepted, and that is all we have on the agenda, on the consent agenda item. So I need a motion, second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda item, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Personnel report for July is certified staff resignation of Lynn Callaway as guidance counselor at Tipton Middle School, Cameron Finch, industrial technology automotive teacher at Tipton High School, Kaylee Dickon, assistant principal at Tipton Elementary School, Jordan Bowen, kindergarten teacher, Tipton Elementary School, Melissa Henry, special education teacher, Tipton High School, transfer of Christine Nichols, transfer from high school guidance counselor to part-time college and career counselor at Tipton High School. Recommendation, David Case, industrial technology automotive teacher at the high school, Tanner Scott, 7th grade social studies teacher at the Tipton Middle School, Joel Larson, elementary assistant principal, Talisa Glassburn, guidance counselor at Tipton High School. Classified staff, resignation, Amy Phillips, corporation treasurer, Melissa Ridgway, special education assistant, Tipton Elementary School, Amber Stevens, special education assistant, Tipton Elementary School, Scott Wessel, corporation bus driver. Transfer of Don Benefiel, corporation administrative assistant to corporation treasurer. Jane Anderson, transfer Title I assistant to media assistant, Tipton Elementary School. Grace Clifford, transfer from media assistant to general classroom assistant, Tipton Elementary School. Jennifer Cox, transfer from Title I assistant to Tipton Elementary School secretary. Recommendation, Logan Huffhan, temporary summer custodian, Charlotte Baird, corporation bus driver, Stacy Cornett, corporation bus driver, Laura Fulton, administrative assistant to the superintendent and secretary of the school board of trustees. ECA staff, recommendation for Diane Mass, 7th grade volleyball coach, Tipton Middle School. Christian Chantel Campbell, 8th grade volleyball coach, Tipton Middle School. And resignation, Lynn Gagel, volleyball coach, JV volleyball coach at high school. All right, next on today's agenda is
We do have Joel Larison here, and Joel, do you want to come on up and introduce your family? And we certainly appreciate you bringing everybody. Yeah, you're on.
thank
Glad
you.
to have
Welcome.
you a part of this. Thank you.
Welcome. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Glaze.
All right. First of all, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Jaworski. We were lucky enough to get our 1003 waiver approved. So again, out of the 180 student days that we are required to have, we will have actually 177. which will allow us to have 3 professional development days. And this will provide us with a great opportunity to move the district forward and to train our teachers. From the parent side, those are not e-learning days, so I think they'll be happy about that. And what essentially the waiver will allow us to do is to count to no longer count instructional day or instructional hours, but to count instructional minutes, because with all of our schools, we actually go a longer day than what is required from the state. So this will allow us to bank that time and will allow us to have those 3 days without violating the 180-day policy. So thanks to Mr. Jaworski for doing that. The 3E grant, spoke a little bit about that earlier in the work session. That's a partnership with IUK. What it provides for Tipton is a half-time college and career counselor, and the college and career counselor will be working with businesses around the area, setting up internships and opportunities for for work-based learning for our high school students. Also, this person will assist in college and career curriculum that IUK is providing. They will make sure that all that curriculum is dispersed to the appropriate grade levels, and particularly 8th grade, and where we are preparing for college and careers class will now be. So IUK will provide that curriculum for them as well. This is patterned off of Tomorrow's Teachers, which we are a part of. And again, what Tomorrow's Teachers will allow is 6 college credits in a specific field of study. We already have the ACP courses and the AP courses that are essentially electives for our students. These courses will actually be field specific. So for instance, Tomorrow's Teachers, they are getting 6 college credits that are in the field of education. So if we end up, and what we're looking at is there'll be tomorrow's medical something or other. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to call that. Tomorrow's science, computer scientists. So these types of opportunities will be rolling out from IUK, where students can get, again, 6 college credits in a specific content area or a field of study. So again, it's a great opportunity for our kids, and I'm excited to partner with IUK in this endeavor. And then, as it says down there in that final point, again, setting up the college and career curriculum. And then also in 7th grade, we'll have the Step Up to College program, which we started last year with IUK. So lots of good things happening there. Latin honors discussion. We had our first meeting last week. With the Student Achievement Subcommittee is part of that from this board. We are looking at really delaying implementation for a year because there's just a lot to cover in this idea, and we want to make sure it's effectively communicated, especially to next year's 8th grade students or our current 7th grade students. So we just want to kind of take a step back, still look at implementation and the implementation plan that was developed by our ACP speech folks. And again, we had a really robust conversation in our first meeting, and we will certainly have more as time goes on. Transportation update, we still are in need of 1 bus driver. So anybody wants to drive a bus? One once? Okay, anyway. We did set up a really cool cooperation with the Tipton Municipal Utility. And what we're doing is we are using or allowing our bus driver trainer to train their employees for the CDL licensure. And this is a great opportunity. And in turn, they will the TMU folks will be able to assist us with extracurricular trips. So they're going to go ahead and get their CDL with, and also get it with the ability to drive a school bus. And so that's going to provide us with a few more subs as far as the opportunity for ECAs. They really can't help us too much during the school day because that overlaps with their work time. But anyway, it's kind of a really cool idea, and I applaud our folks working with Jim Ankrum, looking at this and trying to figure out a way to be smart about getting some more drivers for us and also helping out our community. Kindergarten students are introversa, so they have been placed on buses. And then we do have one new bus driver in training, and that appears to be going fairly well. Construction updates, TES cafeteria. Mr. Johnson, would you like to come up and talk about that?
I guess
It's on.
Yeah.
So, right now the plan is to have kindergarten eat at 10:30 in the middle school cafeteria. So the only one's going to be the middle school students at that time, and then everybody else is going to eat. So it's not ideal by any means, but it is what it is at this point. That having them eating in their classrooms is a better option than having our biggest challenge at this point is going to be our coverage for lunch. Classroom. So that's our challenge right now, and we continue to work on that. So
Thank you. And again, this is something that our kids did during COVID. We don't look at this as being a huge burden on our kids. And the great thing is we're getting new carpet in the classrooms. So if we destroy that carpet, I guess it's not the end of the world. But honestly, it did. The kids did a great job the last time, so I feel like that it's the best plan that we can have moving forward. I also want to take the opportunity to share a little bit about the construction plan. I've got to do a little switch around here. There we go. Woo. Okay, what you'll notice, this is a little bit of our timeline as far as the elementary. And, again, it's construction, folks. So some of this may work really well together, some of it may not. So hopefully we have, as long as things are going on schedule, we have essentially over here is phase one. So you'll notice that's why there's all kinds of noise over there, because they're demoing these areas pretty hot and heavy today. So they've been doing just tearing up the carpeting and taking out bookcases, but now they're taking out walls. So this is getting pretty ramped up. So we're looking at these areas being out of commission really until December. Okay, and again, hard to know what that timeline will be, but hopefully December will be about the right time. Then we start with phase two, which will be our current 5th grade classrooms. Now, what we've done is we have really looked hard at the elementary building, and we actually have some vacant classrooms that we have intentionally left open, where we will be transitioning grade levels into those vacant classrooms so that we can begin to renovate those spaces. The whole idea is we take a grade level out, we do all of the work, and then when everything's done, they come back. So they'll have new furniture, new floors, new paint, new cabinetry, all kinds of new stuff. And then, so once 5th grade's done, then we move to phase 3, which will be our 2nd grade, and then so forth and so on. The very last will be, we did not want to move our preschool K and 1 kids. So they're in the red, and actually that renovation will not begin until next summer, because we just felt like the transition with our K1 kids would be really super hard. So, so anyway, that just kind of gives you a general idea. So there's going to be a lot of transition going on at the elementary. The teachers are aware of it. We showed this to them really very early in May, so they know that it's going to be a little bit of a strange year. But again, the end result will be a really nice building. So any questions about any of that? Okay. Trying to figure out a better way to do this.
The cafeteria in their room.
That'll be until, yeah. So hopefully by the first of the year, we will be in those new spaces. I think that's a good idea. Something that Adam and I can talk about. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I certainly do not have a problem with that. Adam, we can talk. No, that's a good idea. Okay. So again, that's kind of what that TES timeline looks like. Parking lot and tennis courts, you might notice there's not been a whole lot of work done there. We are waiting to get some permitting from the DNR and Fish and Wildlife, and it's been a bit of a process. And so we're looking at, and it looks like this is going to be a good date to start. On July 29th will be hopefully our go-ahead date. So we'll begin some work. Of course, since those parking lots, the parking lot and tennis courts will not be ready, we will use the same parking procedure we used last spring, which certainly wasn't wonderful, but it did work. But that's one thing that we will be communicating out to parents, letting them know that it's going to be kind of similar to what we did last year. Unfortunately for tennis, the fall tennis will not be able to utilize courts for this season, our home courts for this season. So we'll have to continue to do what we did last spring with going to other places to use their courts. And again, it's just kind of one of those unfortunate things that has come up. The turf track lighting is all on schedule. The lights are actually up. The turf is here, just a matter of installing. The track will be the last part that will be done once everything is done with the turf. Curbing in the parking lots probably will begin seeing some installation this week and next. One of the issues has been just getting concrete. Concrete has been tough to get here lately. So that's been one of the issues there, and hopefully that is still a pretty firm timeline. Demo for the cafeteria, media center, science room. That's getting, like I said, going pretty crazy this week. We've also had some Tipton High School students that have been assisting with the work in the media center. And So that's been a great opportunity for our kids, and I do thank R.L. Turner for giving our kids that opportunity to do that work. Great summer job. And then the greenhouse, it really should be complete before school starts. It's really fairly close, even though I know the walls aren't up, but that's really because it's hot in there, and they don't want to put the walls up so they can get some ventilation, because a lot of the work they're doing right now is up in the roof. So again, it's on time. Everything seems to be going well
And
there.
that will be furnished too by
Yes.
then, so it'll
Yeah.
be functioning.
As far as I know, everything is in for the inside, the furnishings. I'm not positive on that, but from what I know, yes. Okay. The other thing, which is a little bit different, a little bit new, is we are going to have to look at a new phone system. I did get information that our voicemail system is still has some old information on it. And when I talked to Stephen about that, about trying to get that changed, we can't do it. There's no way to make that change. So we are going to go ahead and just proceed with a new phone system, which will allow us to update voicemail. It'll allow us to have a lot more features than what we currently have. There'll be more information to come on that. So we are still working out some of the technical parts of that process. So that's it for me, and that's longer than typical, so I apologize.
Okay, next up are the department reports. We had in your packet, we have reports from Student Achievement and Learning by Mr. Jaworski, Student Services and Transportation by Mr. Clark, Food Services from Adam Prohl, and Director of Technology, Stephen Gingrich. Did anybody have any questions for any of those gentlemen in regards to their report? All right, next is financial report, Dr. Glaze.
So, as of the end of June, we have a cash balance in the education fund of $820,000. In the operation fund, we have a cash balance of $1.7888481. That's after our property tax collection. This balance will increase significantly now that we've had our bonds sold, and that money is already wired and in our accounts. We just need to move that. So the end of month for July should look different as far as how much money is in the operation cash balance. And then for the last two accounts, debt service has a cash balance of 1.3 million, and then rainy day fund, of course, 2.5 million, as it's been for the last few months.
Okay. Next on today's agenda is old business. We have none. New business. First item on the agenda is consideration to increase the school lunch by 10 cents for the 2022-2023 school year. IDOE is recommending but not requiring a 10-cent per meal increase for the 2022-23 school year for students on paid and reduced price lunches. Tiffin Community School Corporation feels this is fiscally responsible due to the increases with the coming school year's cost of food due to inflation and supply chain issues. 2022-2023 breakfast and lunch costs with the increase are listed below. And those are student breakfast at $1.80, high school student lunch $3.10, middle school student lunch $2.80, elementary $2.70. It is recommended that we accept this IDOE recommended cost increase of 10 cents per meal. Need a motion and a second to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is consideration to approve the 2022-2023 ride guide. You had a copy of that in your packet to review. During the last few months, the Board of Trustees approved the new transportation handbook. This month, we asked for approval of the ride guide. Updates are relatively small for this year. The ride guide will be included in registration materials. As recommended, the Board of Trustees approve the ride guide as presented. Anyone have any questions or discussion on that? None. I need a motion and a second to approve the ride guide. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration to approve the 2022-23 changes to Tifton Community School Corporation's virtual plan. 2023-2022 virtual plan continues to become a more streamlined approach to virtual learning, as Mr. Dworsky explained during our work session a little while ago. Again, all Tifton Community School Corporation virtual students will use Edmentum products as their curriculum. K through 5 will use Ed Options, while 6 through 12 will use Edmentum software and Play-Doh. In order to qualify for Tifton Community School Corporation virtual, students must have a valid and medically documented need to attend in a virtual environment. Student progress will be monitored closely within these programs by Mr. Dworsky. As recommended, the Board of Trustees approve this virtual plan. Anyone have any questions or comments?
I have two.
You may have a couple of questions because we didn't get to that on earlier, so, yeah.
I have two. One question is, I'm curious at what rate a student enrolled in the virtual school funding for that student. I'm curious if that's 100% funding, or if it's 80%, or
Is it 85 or 85%?
85%.
If they're full-time virtual, yes.
Okay. And then my second question, is that a rolling enrollment, or is that something that a student must start a semester in the virtual school? Or is it something that if it's,
That's a great question, and one that we're finalizing on this is that last year it was rolling, so it was at any point they could hop on, and I would like to avoid doing that going forward. Just again trying to avoid the issues of if they were in class for like the first 3 or 4 months and they were joined at the last month or so of the semester. What happens to all their grades? Where do they start with the Edmentum program? It just becomes really difficult because we've had experiences where students lost their grades for most of the year and then that grade replaced it, or it's something that we need to tidy up a little more as far as nailing down exactly how we want to do this. It would be my preference to have a cutoff date for when students could enter into that virtual program, so that way we're not running into some of those issues that we ran into last year.
how many students were in the virtual school last year, and do you anticipate it being the same this year?
I would anticipate there being less. I know that last year I had communication with those families quite frequently, just trying to see where they're at, how they're doing. The ones who had it depended on which building that they were getting virtual instruction from. So for our elementary students, if they had a strong support system at home, they did well. But those families also expressed to me how time consuming it was on their end to support their child to be successful. The ones who didn't have that type of support were not successful, and we have data that supports that, both their grades and how they performed on NWA and iLearn. For our middle school students, it really did not do well for them. Save a couple who had a lot of strong family support. If there wasn't strong family support, it was not successful. At our high school level, it was a little bit more successful. That's more self-paced. Curriculums maybe not as rigorous, so to speak, as what you'd see in our K through 8. But we definitely saw a lot more students, I think a little more self-motivated students having success with it at the high school level. So that's why, again, it's something that, keeping in mind that with those families who had that success we're not interested in trying to repeat that kind of work to keep their students on task for that entire time. I think we're going to see a pretty significant drop in the number of parents, families applying for that virtual academy.
Last year when we approved this plan, I think that we decided that if you participated in virtual school, you would not be able to participate in extracurricular activities, sports, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Is that still,
Yeah,
is that still incorporated in the same?
yes, that has not changed. That is a great question. We had not experienced that. We didn't have anybody want to come back in after going into that.
I would say we would take them back.
I
Yeah, without question. Unless
it'd be more of a
sometimes we have kids in there that for disciplinary.
correct. It'd be more of a logistics issue. So what ended up happening with a good amount of the additions into our virtual school throughout the year, those were due to expulsions that we didn't want to bring that student back into the school environment, but we didn't also want to just leave that kid out in the streets without any type of form of education. So that ended up being for those students. That's something that we still need to take a little more consideration on, because it's something that we definitely want to bring those kids back in. But again, it comes back to a logistics question of, okay, so what do we do with their grades then? Is it that we take this portion and enter it in at quarter, and then how does that look for when they come in middle of the second quarter? Like, those are types of questions that kind of make it a little more difficult on our end for that.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Mr. Dworsky? Not, I need a motion and a second to approve the changes to the 2022-2023 Tipton Community School Corporation virtual plan.
I move to approve the changes to this coming school year's virtual plan.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is other matters to come before the board. Does anyone have anything? All right. Advisory committees coming up, August the 15th, Facilities and Technology. September the 19th, Personnel Committee will be meeting. October the 18th, there'll be a Student Achievement Committee meeting.
And I will say, our committee, look for an email from me.
All right, scheduled events next week. On July the 26th, school offices reopen. 28th, walk-in registration is from 2 to 7 p.m. And the 28th also, blue card and white card night from 2 to 7 p.m. On the 28th and 29th, new teacher orientation. And August the 4th and 5th, Summer Teacher Academy. TMS Rocks on August the 8th, and August the 9th is First Teacher Work Day. And the next board meeting is also August the 9th, and Professional Development Day is on August the 10th, and the first day for students is August the 11th. Why do I keep wanting to say October? I want to keep pushing that out. It's not supposed to be time to start yet. Okay.
They have the TMS Rocks on August 8th. Is there a day for incoming freshmen for the high school?
We were still working that out. Rick, the date for your freshman orientation, August.
All right. Nothing else on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting. A motion and a second. In favor of adjournment, say aye. All right. Thank you very much.